Parents of Reddit, what is the worst thing you have ever done in front of your teenage kid? I bought potato salad from the deli and was putting it into a glass cookware as if it was homemade. I got busted. Hope this qualifies. With our daughter away at college, the wife and I would take advantage of many situations to do the bump. One day I came home from work and I heard a shower running. I went into the bathroom and reached inside the shower curtain and pinched her ass. All of a sudden I hear this voice say, "What the FCK, dad?" Apparently our daughter decided to come home for the weekend unannounced. I think I was more FK'd up over it than she was. Going to a movie with my 15-year-old. Getting out of the car I turn just wrong and twinge my back. She asks what's wrong and I say I threw my back out humping your mom last night. She is looking at me like a deer in headlights. And I cannot stop laughing. Which incidentally did not help my back. Went to my 12-year-old son's end of season dinner for his sports team. Just an informal get together at a local family pizza place on a Friday night. One of the parents brought multiple cases of wine with him, wine salesman, and we all went a bit nuts. I don't drink much these days so it hit me extra hard. Apparently when we were walking home I was hiding in the bushes, then leaping out at random people pretending to be a Nosferatu type vampire and hissing at them. Hissing. My poor kid was mortified. Peas, I'm a hobbit-sized woman so the people passing weren't scared by me. Just bemused annoyed. The worst thing I could think of was my dad yelling at some guy that stole a parking space he was waiting for. When I was a teen sometimes my dad would go into a store and leave me in the car. Sometimes I'd drive the car to a new parking spot and sometimes it was clear on the other side. I'd see him start walking to the old spot. Get confused. And look around like WTF. He'd get in the car and be like, "Did you move the car?" "Huh, what? No, not at all." Not the parent, but my boyfriend in high school was having a friend stay over and he forgot something at home and he went in to grab it and walked in on an orgy. We all felt so bad for that kid, like, oh god. Friend's mum in HS used to get drunk. Pop pills. Sometimes hurt herself. On purpose or just from falling downstairs. Nearly every night. He wasn't in a good place. I used to tell him I wanted to come and watch TV at his place because his TV was better, but it was just so he had someone to help whilst he inevitably called the ambulance or police. Sometimes she would wander off. She eventually sorted herself out and became an amazing grandmother. And I got to watch a shit ton of music videos on the nights when she stayed drunk in her room. I miss the 80s. As my mum is near incapable of using a computer, I'll share on her behalf. One night she got ridiculously drunk and came home. She called me from her bedroom and said she had something to show me and I reluctantly go to her. She's in her bedroom holding a thick translucent purple vibrator and she says to me in slurred speech, "This is what mummy uses when she's lonely." To do this day I don't know WTF she was thinking when she did this. Edit. As lots of people have asked. I was about 15 at the time. Another edit. I should also clarify that she wasn't using the vibrator. I got caught masturbating. Didn't hear them come in. They threw open the shower curtain to prank me. Couldn't look em in the eye for a week. Edit. The prank was the bucket of freezing cold water they were about to throw on me. Not just ripping the curtain open to expose my shame. Also, my top comment is about masturbating. Not sure if I should be proud or ashamed. You got caught masturbating in the shower? FFS. Parent tells the story. Funny and embarrassing. Child tells the story. Kinda funny. When I was about 12, my mom threw a wooden cutting board at my stepdad. He dodged it. And the cutting board obliterated some super fancy antique set of spice storage jars my mom held dear to her heart. This was, of course, my stepdad's fault. My 79-year-old grandmother had sex with my mom's childhood friend in the kitchen of her house and my mom walked in on them. It disturbed my mom and she said that my grandma's wig was coming off. This happened to my husband. We had a whole gaggle of teenage kiddos over at our house one Friday night. My husband had a few beers and then snuck off behind the garage to have a smoke. He doesn't smoke in front of me since I quit. He had bombed a really strong cig and it made him super dizzy. Just as he was keeling over, a group of teenagers came along the path just in time to see him fall over onto the lawnmower. He pretended to be getting ready to mow, which made them howl with laughter. I woke up at night to grab some food. As I walked to the stairs, I saw my dad crawling naked on the stairs making sounds like Tarzan on its way to my mom. Never watched Tarzan again. When I was like 12, I was spending the night at a friend's house. I started feeling sick around midnight. So I went to ask his dad, who usually stayed up playing video games on their PC, to call my parents to come pick me up. When I walked out, he was furiously beating his meat with some generic as FCK PRN on the monitor. I decided to just go back to bed. It's not that I think having a wank is bad, but when your kid has their 12-year-old friend over, maybe postpone that shit. Or do it in a room with a lock or a door. Edit. Ouch. Right in the inbox. Good morning Reddit. I love how you had the presence of mind to notice that he had vanilla taste. Edit. This comment wasn't worth 2k plus upvotes, but okay. My 27-year-old husband in this past year has walked in on his grandparents having sex. His brother has walked in on them. Their cousin has walked in on them. Old people are wild. I am a parent, but my kids are still really little, so this story isn't about them. I teach 8th graders, 13-15-year-olds depending on their birthday. I am normally a history teacher, but this past year I also taught English. I was trying to think of a way of explaining writing a 5-paragraph essay. You have your introduction, 3-paragraph body, and conclusion. After I explained that, I said, think of it like a sandwich. You can't leave out your bun or you are just left holding your meat. I was horrified. I think I will stick to teaching history. That way I can ask them why they are giggling when I teach them about Watergate and my Sliddershall says deep throat. I drank too much whiskey one night when my son was about 10 or 11. Woke up to take a leak and stood in front of his Xbox and just started pissing, allegedly. I have no memory of this. He said he yelled at me to stop, but I just glared at him. Edit. I am so late to the party. But my dad always tells the story of when he was 6 or 7 and his father, my grandpa, came home from a rowdy night of drinking. My dad says my grandpa sidled slowly into the kitchen with a rope in his hand, and my grandma, who was sitting at the kitchen table, asked what he had done. He then led a miniature pony into the kitchen. The pony was named Speedy. He bit like a moth and would never let anyone ride him. And one day he ran off. They lived around a lot of farmland, so we like to think someone took him in and got the devil out of him. Geez, this thread is either my parents FK'd in front of me or my abusive dad tried to kill my mom in front of me and my mom threatened to commit suicide in front of me. My husband left us when my daughter was 9. I was single until last year when left she high school and went to college. When she was 15 she was supposed to be staying the night at a friend's house, so I had a friend of my own over. We got a little drunk and started hooking up on the couch, and I got his pants down and he had the biggest rig I've ever seen in person. I went down on him. And then my daughter came home early because her friend got sick. She walked in on me with this guy's giant penis in my mouth and went, "Mom, what the FCK? Holy shit," and ran out of the room. We were all mortified. Edit. Holy hell, this blew up. No, I don't want to see your dicks. His size was only important to the story because it was big enough to make my poor daughter's reaction go from mortified to just shocked. Then back to mortified. No, life isn't a PRN movie. She and I laugh about it now. Late. But funny. My girlfriend's dad came home late after a night of drinking when she was a kid. Didn't know my girlfriend was having her friends for a sleepover. He stumbled in her room to give her a kiss goodnight and tripped over a cot in the middle of her room. He was confused as to why it was there. So he did the nice dad thing of putting her cot away for her. Turns out there was a teenage girl sleeping in said cot that got folded up. My mom was a very mild alcoholic. At least she was a happy drunk. Anyway, when I was about 9 it was her 40th birthday party. My parents threw big parties for the 0s. So they had a tent out in the backyard and all their friends were over, and after about 4 hours of heavy drinking and catered food it's time to start opening the gifts. My mom opens the one from my band teacher. They were good friends and later my sister and I decided she was having an affair with him at the time. And it's a music box which my mom loves full of condoms. I guess my dad had just gotten a vasectomy at the time, and so as a rebuttal my mom decides to bring down the collar of her already low cut shirt and flashes the entire audience. I went to bed after that. TLDR, don't whip your tits out in front of your kids. Edit. Oh yeah. And my parents drove drunk with us in the car a lot when we were kids. Like every single weekend for about 14 years. That was a fun realization. Oh man, I came here for funny stories. Not this. I farted really loudly and it smelled. Daughters outdo me nowadays. But I plan to be incontinent when I reach my 80s and live with one of them. Playing the long game. Okay, I am a parent with a host of stupid things done. But my oldest is only 8 now. But I am a scout sledder regularly dealing with our teenage rover scouts. And at our clubhouse we got a parking problem with our neighboring gardening club. So when one particular nasty neighbor yet again parked in our spots, we might have put whistles in her exhaust pipe and laughed madly when she drove away, and all those whistles actually worked as intended. And all that in front of quite a few rover scouts. Yeah, that wasn't really showing a good example, and we did tell them that. Kinda. Literally everything I do is the worst thing ever. So embarrassing. Oh, the joys of having teenage kids. I screamed at a bitch who almost hit me. We were walking through the parking lot and it was bright at. I've got 3 girls so I watch cars pretty carefully. I ushered my girls in front of me and started walking again, and this car literally brushed the whole length of the car across my back and ass. I punched her car and screamed at her. She could have killed one of my kids and pretty obviously just quickly pulled out without looking. I then realized she was on her phone and started swearing and yelling even more. She then sped out of the parking lot and I felt bad for setting a bad example for my kids. Also, my hand hurt from hitting her car. If it's any consolation, I don't think anyone blames you for responding like that. Got me addicted to painkillers at the age of 13. Then continued to feed them to me till age 18. After a few TTY years and many attempts to get clean. I'm 26 and have now been clean for almost 2 years. Edit. Thank you for all the kind words to those I didn't reply to. It's the little things like that that help too. My mum used to tell me she was gonna kill herself and she wanted me and everyone else to know it would be my fault. All a bit messed up really. Not the worst thing in life, but I do get a little angry behind the wheel. I was driving with my son, and when other drivers do incredibly inconsiderate or just plain stupid things, I feel the overwhelming need to see who the F this person is. I slam my horn and sometimes hit the gas a bit to catch up and overtake them. Give them a look. Or shout at them, often through a closed window. Now my son isn't, has always been, as many kids, observant. We'd watch shows together, and ever since he was small, I'd notice him watch me laugh. Then look back at the TV. Then back at me. He was building an internal library of what humor was. In the same sense, I see him observing me on the road and I can't help but feel ashamed at my anger and response to it. I need to be better for my boy's sake. Till that alcohol is usually poisonous to the family structure. I'll comment on my ex-BF behalf. When his sister turned 16, she has a party hosted at her 50-year-old mum's house. Her mum got drunk and hooked up with one of the 16-year-old's male friends. She told me and my ex this on a visit to England, giggling like it wasn't a disgusting, horrifying story. As a teen my dad would go off on me over tiny things and kick me out of the house. Only to come and try to pick me up 10 miles down the road. Yup. My mother and father would throw me out of the house every few weeks. Tell me to leave until I learned not to argue with them. I'd go, knowing full well not to walk too far because my mother would call at 2 to 4 AM. Scared and furious that I hadn't come back home. You get used to it. I had a temper tantrum in the car and almost got into a fight with some other asshole. Like he got out of his car. I made my daughter cry. I will never do that again. I'm an asshole. I'm the teenager in this scenario. My mom was addicted to painkillers while I was growing up. Like, really addicted. To the point where she would have regular overdoses. Guess who had to deal with the aftermath of those overdoses? The same guy that missed at least 7 days a school year to sit with her in the hospital while she was in an overdose-induced coma. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she'd have died by now without me. In 1997 I was 11. Our local AFL team had just won their first ever grand final and dad was at the pub with my 7-year-old brother and me. He got absolutely smashed and then drove us home but couldn't remember the way at all, so we had to direct him. His car had no seat belts. It was about a 15-minute drive. No one died in this story. Luckily. He used to drink and drive all the time. He knows how FK'd it is now, but back then it was seemingly normal for people to do it. Nice try, CPS. My husband made a crack about how we were going to make the bed bang against the wall later that night. He didn't realize our 13-year-old daughter was in the room. She was horrified. Every night for a month afterward, she had a crying panic attack, which required that I sit and comfort her until she could sleep. I'll always believe she did this subconsciously to prevent my husband and me from being in the same bedroom at night. Edit. Grammar. Isn't that a bit of an overreaction? I mean, she's a teen, so shouldn't she realize that married people have sex? When my husband makes cracks like that, my 14-year-old yells gross. Or OMG, I'm right here. And we laugh and everyone's not permanently damaged. This entire thread is people answering for their parents. Because a shitty that most parents would own up to isn't all that interesting. My mom doesn't have Reddit, so I'll answer for her. At the time we lived with her so and a friend of his turned 40 and there was going to be a big party. For some reason it was allowed to bring kids, so I was dragged along. I was 14 I think. All the kids was put in a smaller room so the adults could drink and be rowdy. My mom was very nervous meeting all these people she didn't know and drank a bit too much wine. It was the first time I saw her drunk. The night ended with her throwing up pink vomit all over the cab and my lap. But I think she topped that during her friend's 40th birthday. I was around 18 or 19 then I think. Maybe older. She again got drunk, but this time she started making out with some woman at the party. I was so confused. She's not gay, so it was a bit weird to witness. Well, how about we talk about what my stepmom did in front of us, lol. So imagine my dad, ex-soccer player, grew up skin and bones. Now in his 50s at 5'8" rocking a solid dad bod. Now imagine my stepmom, ex-cheerleader and sorority girl who still has her body in her 40s. Already a weird physical match. They make a great couple. Just weird to see, lol. Now imagine me growing up never really watching family drink. All my family loves to drink, but they're very conservative with alcohol. I had never really seen any of my family drunk before. So I'm probably like 16 and went on my first family vacation with the step-family aside, who love to drink a lot. By the end of the first night I saw my stepmom twerking on my dad while he had this "I really want to enjoy this but 5 of our F-king kids are watching this right now" look on his face. Definitely not the worst thing in this thread. But at the time I was scarred, lol.